right, so I have the pleasure of introducing Clay Yarborough, who is here to represent the government sector. When you think about a member that we have here at the Chamber who has served in government in Jacksonville, in the state, he immediately came to mind. And so he is now, he served 8 years with the Jacksonville City Council, his final year as president of the 19-member body. He served 6 years with the Florida House of Representatives and then was elected to the Florida Senate. So with that, Clay Yarborough to speak about government. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you, and no pressure at all being the very first speaker at the very first chamber chat, and I've never done a TED Talk either, so we'll see how this goes. So, and the clock's running too, I see that. Okay, y'all can see the clock too. Okay, all right, very good. I've used up 20 seconds. Tony, I don't know where Tony went. I wanted to say it was great to see him too. I don't know if maybe he stepped out. Tony's a dear friend. Tony, great to see you, and Brad, Sean, and Jeff, thanks so much for the invitation. I was praying hard about what to speak about today, and just wanted to share some raw truth with you and then do my best to help you apply that and help equip you, as Jeff mentioned a few minutes ago, just from an experience I've had this past year in our legislative session over in Tallahassee. My wife and I live here. We have 4 boys our twins are about to be 11. We have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my wife and I are raising them, and they go over to Tallahassee with me too during session. Our district that I represent in the state Senate, of which we have 40 members, is all of Nassau County, and then it's pretty much all of Duval that's outside the donut of 295. And so just to give you an idea on the geography. So served 6 years in the House, moved over to the Senate. House has 120, we have 40, so we have to push all the big priorities through a lot fewer people in the Senate, especially with a year like this where we had a pretty bold agenda, as most of you saw. And so I approached the Senate president right after I got elected in November last year and said, I want to work on some of these issues that are very important for our kids, not only school kids, but all of our families and all of that. And it really bothered me that we were starting to see an uptick around the country we have a lot of great folks in healthcare, but we have some healthcare providers who are saying maybe the only cure for some of the gender dysphoria that some of the young people are experiencing is to basically channel them in and get them reassignment surgeries and put them on puberty blockers and hormone therapy and all these other things. Now, Genesis 1:27 says we're made in the image of God, and he made us male and female. That's just the raw truth. There are some birth defects. There are some things that happen in the case of some births, but overall, you have a binary division of the genders, and we are made male and female, and we are all made in the image of God. So it bothered me as I would start to hear this more about kids basically being channeled into the stocks of these different surgeries and procedures and basically being used for social experimentation. So I filed a bill that said in Florida that we would ban those surgeries from happening on minors in Florida. If you have adults, they're going to make their decisions. We did not touch that. We said they have to give informed consent. But when it comes to a minor, if somebody touches a child to try to reassign their gender and basically profit off doing these things, that's illegal in Florida. There's going to be fines. There's going to be criminal penalties. We put it through the process. And thank you. And I say it to bring up the title that I kind of gave to today's thing. I don't know if it was up there, but the title was, basically a test of faith and a trial by fire. Because you can imagine there was a little bit of emotion and passion behind that when we started to work it through the process. And so my chief adversary in the Senate on this issue, to kind of lead the opposition, very skilled former prosecutor from South Florida, and was really coming hard, and it made me think quickly about Ephesians 6, where we're taught to be equipped with the armor of God. And I can tell you, this felt like fiery darts and arrows and bombs and grenades and everything going off. I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney, don't have a law degree, I have a lay degree. But no, just went for general business and just like being involved in this process. And that's why I wanted to get involved years ago. And so to run a bill like this that had a lot of nuance in it, that was a big topic, everybody was going to be, watching and all, was a big deal. And it was there was a companion bill running in the House at the same time because you have to marry bills together from the House and the Senate before they can go to the governor for consideration. And so you talk about the fire being turned up. Now, what is fire? Fire is very hot. And fire can also make you really scared when you're close to it. And I'm sure the 3 Hebrew children, when they were thrown into it, probably were wondering what was going on when they were thrown in. But then we know that God was with them and and brought them through it and all, and they were unharmed. And that's what it felt like during this process. We had a protest in front of our house. That was kind of scary. I would get phone calls at all hours of the day and night from people all across the country that said, we know where you and your family go to church. We know where you live. Watch your back, kind of thing. My staff got threatened and all that. I'm not saying that as a woe is me, give me sympathy, because I knew when we started the fight that there was going to be a true fight, and there was going to be, animosity toward it, and there was going to be a fire to have to deal with. But I think in all 7 of the years that I've been in the legislature, it was the most intense. That was probably the biggest item I've ever worked on. But God gave such grace in that process. And somebody said to me after the debate when we had it on the Senate floor, you realize you were standing there for 2 hours taking questions and having to debate this thing. It didn't even feel like that. It was so surreal working on it. And I guess as I kind of get into what the application is and why I've even brought this whole story up for you, is whatever sector you're in, or even just in your life or with your family, like Tony and I think Courtney had shared a few minutes ago, I can't relate to those trials that they've had, but I can tell you in the legislative process, especially in the public square and the fishbowl that I operate in, being in public office, there's fire there and everybody sees it. It's more pronounced. It's out there. But I know each one of you in your respective workplaces and families and spheres of influence, or just your experience there, you're going to face the fires, and you're going to face a test of your faith, especially if you're willing to stand and say, this is right, this is wrong, this is what I'm going to stand on. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to compromise. And this flesh just wants to give in. You all agree with that? The flesh wants to give in. And either give up or just compromise here a little bit and do it incrementally and all that. And that's how you end up way, way off. That little ship rudder gets turned just a little bit. After time, it's miles away from the course it should have been on, or something like that. So I hope that's some encouragement to you today. That's not a ton about like government overall, but just to use a bill as an example. But it was the right thing to do. And, when it's all said and done in 100 years from now, when we're all gone, by that time we would have heard our Savior say, well done, good and faithful servant. He's the audience of one that I'm trying to please. I want folks to, I'm a person who wants to be accepted. And by taking stands on a lot of things, you're not always part of that cool kids club, so to speak, and, and all this other. But again, not to get sympathy on any of that, because I know that, with what we're doing and these right issues we need to work on. But it's worth it. It's worth the cost. And he's the one who we're supposed to serve. So I thank you. I am thankful anyway. So that went better than I thought it would. But thank you for listening, and glad to be the inaugural Chamber Chat. Thank you. And one last thing before Brad takes the mic. Maybe I'll say this real quick. Brad and I were talking a few minutes ago about praying for leaders, and I definitely would say we need your prayers at every level. And I think there's a lot of Christians who don't understand, too. Look, President Biden's in office. God let him be there. I don't agree with a lot of stuff that comes out of D.C., but as believers, we're commanded to pray for all of our leaders. Pray blessings on them, pray for their families, pray for the prosperity and the health of the city, the state, the country, and the world we live in. And as a leader at the state level, I need your prayers too. So if you would do that, I would greatly appreciate it. Brad, thank you very much. Appreciate it.